how do you determine if decimal version of a fraction terminates or repeats? So we're going to be converting fractions into decimals and see which ones terminate and which ones repeat. And we have to think about two questions first. How do you do that? How do you convert a fraction into a decimal? And then what does it mean to say one is repeating or terminating? So let's look at those two things first. So converting a fraction into a decimal. Well, it's pretty simple. It's just one word, and that word is divide. You're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, the top by the bottom. And whether you're doing that using a calculator or long division, either way, you're going to divide. Okay, so now we know how to convert. What does terminating and repeating mean? Well, here are the definitions of terminating decimals. They end. Terminating decimals end. That's what it means. Repeating decimals, they have repeat in a pattern, and that pattern goes on forever. So you see some examples there. The example for the terminating decimals, see how they end. And the ones with the repeating, if you see the dot, 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 that means the pattern is going to continue forever. And then the last one, you have 0.142857, 142857, 142857. Well, those 6 numbers are going to repeat in that same pattern forever, and that's a repeating decimal. Now, here are some fractions that you should already know the decimal form of. So what you're going to do is you're going to pause this video, copy these 4 fractions down, then write their decimal form, then you can pick the video back up and check your answers. Okay, so let's check these answers. So those first 3, notice they're terminating. 1/4 is a quarter, 20.25. 3/4 is 3/4. But the last one, 1/3, that's a repeating decimal. It's 0.333333 forever, or 0.3 repeating with a bar. Let's look at how we can, these are the ones that we already know. Let's look at how we can find the decimals for the other ones that we don't know yet. Here are the first 3 examples that says find the decimal value for each fraction on your worksheet. And I'm just going to show you how we will do that using division. So long division. So I'm going to want the top ends go in the fridge. So the one on the top goes in the fridge. So 1, and the 8 goes on the outside. So this is going to be a decimal. That's what I'm doing. I'm converting a fraction to a decimal. So I'm going to put a decimal point behind the 1 and add some zeros. I don't know how long this decimal is going to be. So I give myself lots of zeros. Now the decimal goes straight up. And then I say, something times 8 is 10. Well, nothing times 8 is 10. So how close can I get? Well, I know 1 times 8 is 8. So I'm going to put the 1 here. 1 times 8 is 8. I subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. And I bring down a 0. So now I do something times 8 is 20. Well, nothing times 8 is 20, but 8 times 2 is 16. So I do 8 times 2 is 16. I put the 16 here and I subtract. And I get 4, and I bring down a 0. So division is just repeated subtraction. We just subtract off pieces at a time. So now 8 times 40, well, 8 times 40, I'm sorry. Something times 8 is 40, and that's 5. So now 5 times 8 is 40. So now when I subtract, I get 0. And I could keep bringing down zeros, but no matter what, something times 8 is 0. Well, that's 0. So my decimal terminated. It's done. So the decimal value is 125 thousandths. So pause this video now, and I want you to try that with 3/8. Okay, so now I'll show you how to do that with 3/8 really quickly. I'm just going to set it up. Give myself lots of zeros. And I ask myself, I say self, something times 8 is 30. Well, I know 3 times 8 is 24. So I subtract, and I get 6, and bring down 0. If you ever subtract and get a number bigger than your divisor, then you must not have picked a big enough number to multiply by. So I get something smaller than 8. That's good. 8 times something is close to 60. Well, let me think. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48, so that's not it. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract, and I get 4 again. 5. It's 40. Good. Now, if I'm thinking about this logically, I should be thinking to myself, well, if 1/8 is this decimal, 0.125, then 3/8 is 3 of those. So if I had 3 of these, think about that. Think about 125 times 3. Wouldn't I get 375? So that would mean 4/8 should be 4 of these. Well, pause the video and find what the decimal is for 4/8. So here's me doing it. 8 goes into 4. So something times 8 is 40. Well, isn't 5 times 8 40? Yeah, so I'm done. That's all it is. 0.5. Now on your worksheet, you're going to pause this video and you're going to answer the 2 questions on your worksheet. What do you notice about all of these decimals? And more specifically, what do you notice about 4/8? So pause the video now and answer those 2 questions and then come back to the video. So I hope you noticed that 4/8, we already had the decimal 0.5. That's the same thing as 1/2. So when you're finding the decimal of a fraction, if it's not reduced or simplified, then you might not realize, but they're actually the same decimal. Let's look at the next couple, and this time I'm going to be nice to you and say that you are allowed to get a calculator. So if you don't have a calculator right now, then you may pause this video and get a calculator and come back to it, and then I'm going to let you use a calculator to come up with these fractions. So now we're back. 1/6, if I do in my calculator, I have an old calculator, 1 divided by 6 is 0.16, and I see in my calculator, and you probably can't see it in this light, but my calculator says 6666, and there's a 7 at the end. Well, don't be fooled. This is 6 repeating here. The 7 is just because the calculator screen has to stop, and it rounds at the end. But the decimal is 0.1 with the 6 repeating. 5/6 is 0.8 with the 3 repeating. Now so far, maybe you're noticing something about these decimals. Let's do the last one, 2/6. 2 divided by 6 is 0.3 repeating. Pause the video now and answer the questions. What do you notice about these decimals? What do you in particular notice about 2/6? So I haven't been filling in my worksheet, but you should be about here where you've answered this question. And maybe you noticed that 2/6, you already had that decimal earlier. That's the same as 1/3. Well, that's because 2/6 reduces to 1/3. Now, maybe you noticed that all of these decimals we did for the 6ths repeated. They were repeating decimals. What do you think will be true about 3/6? Will that also be a repeating decimal? No, it won't, will it? Because 3/6 is the same thing as 1/2. So although all the other sixths repeat, 3/6 doesn't, because in its simplest form is 1/2. So when you turn your paper over to the back, you're going to see that there are what I'm calling a fraction bank. There's all these fractions up here. And you're going to put them in one of these two spots. Either you're going to list that fraction on the terminating side or the repeating side. Now you are allowed to use a calculator to find the decimal values for these fractions, because what I really want you to do is I don't want you to get stuck on the division. I want you to be able to explore which ones are repeating, which ones are terminating. So you're allowed to use a calculator for that. Be careful though about the calculator rounding at the end. Okay, make sure you're watching for that. Then after you've filled in and you've looked at all of these fractions and you filled in whether they're terminating or repeating, then I want you to see, do you see any patterns or notice any similarities between the ones that terminate? When you finish all of that, I want you to come and meet up with me in the back of the room. That's where I'll be. And then you can talk to me about what you found. Okay, thanks. Bye.